I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. Keats and Yeats are on your side. A dreaded sunny day, so I'll meet you at the cemetery gates. Keats and Yeats are on your side. Wild, wild is on mine. So we go inside and we gravely read the stones. All those people, all those lives, where are they now? Oh, with the loves and hates and passions just like mine. They were born and then they lived and then they died. Seems so unfair, I want to cry. You say a thrice the sun-done salutation to the dawn, and you claim these words as your own. But I've read well and I've heard them said 100 times, maybe less, maybe more. If you must write prose and poems, the words you use should be your own. Don't plagiarize or take on loan. But there's always someone somewhere with a big nose who knows and trips you up and laughs when you fall. He'll trip you up and laugh when you fall. You say London does words which could only.
Well, now we begin with a detailed description of the itinerary that will take us along different paths, different ways of this labyrinthical cemetery, Garden of the Angels, the general graveyard of Barcelona, and we will number the different or more noteworthy pantheons from the 1 till the 80 pantheons that they are especially remarkable for his architectural and sculptural works, with all the content that they have in the symbology, whether it is made or it was made with wrought iron pieces, also with some mosaic, stained glass, and the different applied arts that they were one of the defining characteristics of the Art Nouveau, the so-called total art. Well, number 1, we can see here the tomb of Jaume Torres Vendrell, where the still horizontality of the eternal sleep gets tenderly disturbed by the verticality of the standing angel of Josep Llimona. This sculptor, Josep Llimona, was able to align the androgynous faces of angels and crying women with a bitterly melancholic touch. A feeling of loving sadness was in the sensibility of most of the artists and intellectuals of the time. The deceased date, 1904, is when the modernist movement was at its peak, vigorous and well established before starting to decay by 1907. We can see how the typical modernist line, the whiplash, builds up the whole of the fence. The wrought iron works and the coexistence of a multitude of decorative options is one of the characteristics of the modernist style, Modernisme in Catalan. The person buried is the very same founder of one of the most famous wine cellars and brands, Torres, that is from nearby Barcelona, like 40 kilometers away, in a county called Penedès, that is also one of the most producing wine regions in the whole world, and especially also very famous for his cava, the Catalan champagne. Jaume was a youngster that with 18 years old went to Cuba. The commercial network that there he was able to build was afterwards the key to build up the success of the company Torres y Compañía, that was founded together with his brother back in his homeland county, Penedès. The wine, together with the aiguardent spirit, burning water, out of the distillation of the bad wine, or when it was too much surplus, also the exploitation of almonds, hazelnuts, and indianas, robes printed with flowers in the fashion of Filipinas, were very appreciated. The so-called calicos, here we call them indianas. So all these producers and this stuff this manufactured stuff were very appreciated, were some of the most appreciated Catalan products in foreign markets. Trade, sometimes in exclusive markets as was Cuba, was a great incentive that ended in the capitalization of Catalonia. The following step was entering into the industrial achievements, overall with cotton, and a progressive diversification of the economy. Number 2. That is a work of Antonio Rovira, who also signed the Campana de Gracia, a kind of tower that is in the middle of a square in the village, ex-village nowadays, a neighborhood of Barcelona of Gracia, that has a famous clock on the top. He also was the author of a failed project for the Barcelona enlargement. The mausoleum of Miquel Buixeda brings to scene all the spirituality to face death in the times. A very clear boundary is set in the very same entrance of the chapel, where the angel by Rafael Etche expresses the desolation of losing the beloved ones. The waiting attitude of that angelical being remains us the day in which the dead will be brought to heaven. The pantheons normally set a boundary with a door, with the stairs leading to the Sancta Sanctorum, to the family chapel. That idea of limit, frontier, is reinforced by the black and white of the different stones used in the building, inside and outside. The fence is gone, cause vandalism. Right in the entrance we find the letters Alpha and Omega, which later will comment about it, his meaning. Despite the frame shows an Egyptian heavily simple form, all is lightened by floral decoration. Miquel Buixeda is a good example from those industrialists from the steam machine and wool sectors, economic sectors. Apart from making ropes of wool, he also was lending steam power to other manufacturers who were lacking the needed infrastructure, this power force. The buried person told Miquel Buixeda he had a factory in Sabadell, a town nearby Barcelona, and his story of rural exodus from a village in the north called Camprodon, north of Catalonia, so at the feet of the Pyrenees, and ending up in Barcelona when he was young, exemplifies the migratory movement of many Catalans of the time. Number two, the funerary monument to Pere Arús shows upon a podium a broken column, sober classic element per excellence. About the meaning of the broken column, there are many opinions. It would be interesting to know if Pere Arús died because of an accident, an interrupted life as a collapsed column. Another explanation is the degradation of the bodies after death. In the Middle Ages, uncorrupted bodies were undeniable proof of the sanctity of the buried person. The client got with this monument, this funerary monument, with this high composition, so a column that is raised upon a podium, a cheap way to get over his neighbors. Look closer at the fence. Poppies. Opium that makes you sleep. Which plant could be better to express the eternal sleep? And all over, cypress trees embrace our regard. That tree is a must in all cemeteries, due to the symbology load coming out from the sharpness, imperturbability of his grave green color. The cypress tree is the serious backcloth in a graveyard. Already in the ancient times, a branch of cypress tree was placed in front of the house as a sign of mourning. Green, says Celestino Barayat, the author of a very interesting book on funerary gardening, and actually he was in charge of gardening this present cemetery. So green, says Celestino Barayat in his treatise of funerary botany, is the emblem of spring regeneration and therefore represents the immortality of the soul. A relaxed and non-excited glance is the point in a cemetery. Thus green, from leaves and not so many colorful flowers. A relaxed and not excited glance is the point in a cemetery. Thus green, from leaves and not so much colorful flowers. Beyond colors, we also are touched in an unaware way by flares, shapes, and floral combinations. All must be addressed to communicate peace, remembering, humbleness, love, will, metamorphosis, and a hope in an afterlife. As a rule, the lection is the evergreen leaf, as meaning that death ends nothing, but only implies a transit. Likewise, fruit trees must be avoided in a cemetery because they can lead us to a feeling of birth that is not really proper for a cemetery, but on the contrary. The very same Celestino Barayat recommended to cut the clusters of dates that in summer some palm trees make. Species looking aggressive to the side, as the cactus, are also annoying. Death is not to be seen with fear, but as a liberation movement. After Saint Augustine, one of the fathers of the church, writings, our journeys in the earthly city, they should be seen only as a training for the true and only place in which we will feel complete, the city of God. Therefore, even through trying to build a forest, the botany of a cemetery must be a very careful exercise of measure where nothing is hazardous. Moreover, the very presence of trees tell us about the reason why human being dies. After the Bible, when God created man and woman, those were immortal in paradise. To the side of Adam and Eve was the tree of life and the tree of science of evil and good. We already know the consequences for making sense of the snake's advice. For God created man incorruptible, and to the image of his own likeness he made him. By the envy of the devil, death came into the world, and they follow him that are of his side. Pantheon number 4. Here facing this Pantheon, we have a great view of the mausoleum from the family Batlló in line with the one of Bonaplata in an upper ground. Look at the cypress trees, how they contribute to the scenography becoming a frame for these temples. The gate is shielded by two heavy angels by Manel Fuxha, the sculptor, standing up on Egyptian columns and bearing trumpets and crowns, while at the capital of the columns we find owls. These birds are usual curators of the cemeteries. Their ability to see at night is a useful tool for the dead. That bird also represents the point of wisdom of those who are beyond life and death, able to see in the darkness of the unknown. This temple, with an Egyptian and Babylonian flair, shows star forms, pinpointing with thus the success of the family that rightly has won heaven. The Batlló were one of the most mighty lineages of the time, with more than one factory and the currently Escola Industrial, or Can Batlló. The factory of the Urgell Street could employ 2,500 workers, while the factory of La Bordeta, another quarter in Barcelona, gave job to almost 1,000 employees. The cotton was the great engine of the Catalan economy of the times, so late 19th, early 20th century. The American cotton reached Catalonia through Cuba, and here that raw material was manufactured as fabric to be sent to the Spanish and colonial market. Those industrial naves, built with brick and iron pillars and beams, were placed huge steam machines, and next to them the chimney to expel the smoke created by the coal burning, the burning of the coal to make run or to make boil the water, and therefore the steam machine. That steam force made move thousands of workers, many weaving machines. As early as 1860, the Batlló factory was a scenery of workers' strikes and the owners' lockouts. Once they got rid of the factory, the family Batlló entered into the real estate business. Most of the times, they contracted the architect Josep Vilaseca, building some houses in the Quadrat d'Or, like the Golden Yard of the new town of Barcelona, where the most rich people and these magnificent Art Nouveau Modernisme facades are to be found. So this family bought a whole building for the son Pia or the daughter Pia, another one for the son Enric, another one for Angel Batlló, all of them pretty close, Rambla Catalunya, and in all these streets of the Golden Yard. No wonder that this architect was also elected to build the family pantheon. Josep Vilaseca made for Barcelona one of his most celebrated monuments, l'Arc de Triomphe, Triumphal Arch. Also, the rare house of the Umbrellas in the Rambla de las Flors was signed by Josep Vilaseca. We can see normally these associations of architects with given families that they were making for them all the different buildings, from a house till the Pantheon. The burial mound landmarking the sepulchre of Antonio Leal de la Rosa shows one of these sculptures that make Barcelona's graveyard something unique and special. That is a work of Enric Clarasó, one of the members of the cafeteria Cat Quatre Gats. That was so important because these four cats, cafeteria, beer house was like a meeting point of the greatest artists of the time that helped for this artistical eruption that ended up being the golden age of the Catalan art, al Modernisme. So here a slender woman, vanishing, maybe comes to represent the soul that goes as the wind blows the leaves. Notice the sfumato, treatment of the cloak, beaten by the freeze. Remember the sfumato this way that Leonardo da Vinci made to make the contours, not so much separation in between the arm, let's say, and the surrounding air, but somehow blurring the border between so the flesh and the air. Also, that technique of sfumato, it was worked out by the sculptures of these times especially. So a woman full of movement, freed from religious elements, that figure is a way to humanize the mourning, lacking ceremonies and Christian load, but soaked with the pantheism fashionable in the epoch. That philosophy movement, together with the vitalism and the decadentism, were very present in the artistic circles, most of them from a bourgeois background. These three philosophical trends that gave shape to the Modernisme were perfect to deal with the funerary subject.